Thank you so much. My name is Garrett Skrovina. I'm head of strategic partnerships at CoinDesk. Prior to CoinDesk, I worked nearly a decade in the music industry at Rock Nation and Paradigm Talent Agency, representing artists for booking their tours and brand partnerships. I'm happy to pass it over to Tommy to introduce himself.
Hello everybody, my name's Tommy D. I'm a music producer, songwriter and DJ, an artist, whiskey maker and also a tech entrepreneur. I've been in the music industry for over 30 years and worked with loads of amazing artists like Kanye and Jay-Z and Beyonce and all that kind of dubbins. I got into tech, I got into crypto in 2015, fell down the rabbit hole like most of us, realised there was an opportunity for marrying up my two loves of crypto and music, and founded Token Tracks back in late 2020, early 21. We are a music company. I always like to call us a music company because we're music first. We're a music company that focuses on building tech and strategies for the music industry, everything you can think of, but inherently creating a 360 experience for fans and artists to engage with each other in new and amazing ways.
Bryan?
Yeah, hi guys, everyone. I'm Bryan from iiNDYVERSE. So iiNDYVERSE is an augmented CRM platform. What we actually do is we help musicians and actually fashion brands create gamified fun experiences for fans that help them actually like not just engage more, but spend more, but in fun ways that aren't very like shilly or salesy. So we use Web3 tech, but everything is completely under the hood. And it's more about creating experiences that actually get people to understand their top fans better and actually serve them in ways that actually get them to engage and spend. Background-wise, I'm not as versed in music as these guys. The best thing I can say, I was actually a radio DJ in university in Richmond, Virginia, which is kind of weird because I used to do reggae and dancehall. So the only people would call me were people that were high driving to McDonald's at night. I was like, dude, this is awesome. Where do I find more like this? You know, so that's it for me for music. But my co-founder in the crowd, Robin, he's been in music for 15 years. And we have a shared passion for culture and helping musicians actually make the money they deserve from their hard work and careers.
Hi everyone, my name is Ben. I'm the founder of Lissen, which is an interactive music platform. The whole concept is to try to find a way to align the incentives between the fan, the artist, and the platform, so the DSP that we will represent. Also tech entrepreneur, love music, a bit like you, I guess, like a wannabe artist myself, so if you give me a guitar I can do something, but that's about it. And yeah, like fell into it more than 2 years ago and very excited to discuss with you guys on stage.
Awesome. I think there's a lot of talk around Web3 music and a lot of applications that we've seen. I kind of want to pass it to the panelists and say kind of what do you think Web3 can do to help music and benefit the current environment today? If anyone wants to take that.
I'll take it to start with. I think the most important thing is to understand that music isn't any different now to what it was 1,000 years ago. You've still got people that create music. You've still got people that find music and share that music. And then you've got people like all of us that love it. I call them the 3 C's, creators, curators, and collectors. And how can we create a system that benefits all 3 of those parties? The current music business system is not fit for purpose. It actually doesn't benefit anyone apart from a very small percentage of people. I think with Web3 technology, we have the opportunity to first and foremost break down the gatekeepers. 88% of the money that is made by the music business goes to the gatekeepers and 12% goes to the artists that make the music. That is a situation that isn't fit for purpose. That is a model that doesn't work because it doesn't encourage creativity. Fundamentally, we need to create a living wage for artists so they can get fucking well paid. It ain't difficult. And that's what we're doing with Web3 technology.
Yeah, I mean, to add for that, I'll be the devil's advocate. And I mean, it's an obvious question, why Web3? There's a lot of things you could do without Web3 tech, so like, what's the real benefit of it? We, at iiNDYVERSE, we started off, I remember when Robin and I first started, this is before NFTs were cool, we were trying to engage certain hip-hop artists and grime artists to do crypto cards, we were calling it. You know, like, oh, have fans actually invest in a crypto card and give them all those rewards. This is before NFTs took off, but it didn't go too far, really. And for us, we started focusing on the fundamentals, which is fan engagement, and the fact that it's not just the gatekeepers in music that are holding artists and their managers and their teams back. It's also the gatekeepers in social media. They don't own any of the data. They don't know who their fans are. They don't know how to engage them. They get shit conversion rates. So we double down on bringing data and customer experiences together to say, okay, how can we help you build a business around your music? Because the gatekeepers, it takes time to actually break that model. It's a hard model to break, but some cool companies doing that. Some right here, right now. So we started off with a thesis like, during the pandemic, one of our artists, Santi Gold, all her in LA, all her like shows got canceled. And she's like, how do I earn a living now, right? And she's pretty famous. So we helped them build an e-commerce business around their music. And Web3 only came into play because we realized our customers were saying, hey, I don't want to sell to my fans. You have to make this engaging and part of my story. So we started creating gamification where fans can actually earn like certain collectibles that were based on certain campaigns that unlock access to them in different ways, whether it's a merch thing, whether it's a Zoom video, whatever it was. And so Web3 became almost a tool for virtual engagement. And then now, as you see the ecosystem building out, you've seen those anchors that prove some sort of fan engagement and intent can now be plugged into Ticketmaster, right? For early access to tickets and other things as well. So we see Web3 as allowing fans to open up and engage in a community that has less gatekeeping around it based on models that actually are interoperable. Sorry, very long answer, but.
No, I mean, I think it's fun. I think I'm going to pass it to Ben too, because I know he has, you know, a hot take kind of on gatekeepers in general and kind of how they sit in the music industry. And I want to tap in a little bit of what Tommy said is like, I think most people probably conflate like curators and gatekeepers today, because very oftentimes in the music industry, they're the one and the same, right? There is some curators that are fully independent, but more often than not, the music you're served in streaming platforms and things like that on playlists often come from a gate-kept curator, as opposed to a fully curated independent person that's just trying to serve you music. But I know Ben has a little bit of takes there, so anything to like expand on that front?
I'm really aligned with what you guys say. Like the whole concept is a gatekeeper is some kind of an intermediary that turned toxic, right? Like at some point you get some added value in the ecosystem, and then you want to consolidate your position, and you use a lot of different ways to do it, and some of them are a bit less morally acceptable than others. The way we use Web3 is that the same. We started with the customers, right? Like if you think right now, if you listen to music, sometimes you listen to maybe 10 artists, you don't even know it, but your money is going to other artists, right? That's the pro rata system in the music industry. One of the things we do is that we will be a fully user-centric platform, which means that your money goes to the people you stream. It's called revenue share. That's what all the other industries in the world do. But now when you arrive at that point, you say, okay, what if we become at some point toxic? What if we want to be sure that the artists feel like we are a safe house for their IP, for example? What if we want to be sure that an artist can be his or her own platform, right? And this is where Web3 for us has a lot of advantages because, for example, data transparency is amazing. So you can imagine that when you pay just like all our jobs, at the end of the day, we just like, I made X because I worked 5 hours, right? Only artists don't have that. You have this in the film industry, you have this in any other industry, like even your baker. So, for example, we push on-chain with an NFT, but it is not collectible, the data usage. It seems so simple, right? I come from the finance industry. Like, if you don't give me the data of your the marketing campaign I paid for, chances are you will be fired in the elevator, right? But not in music. In music, all that data is being kept away, and data is power, it's information. So if you, and any industry in the world, when you democratize access to data, which we can do with Web3, it boomed. Gaming is a prime example, right? The other one that I think is very interesting, so data transparency. The second one is experience interoperability, right? So you could imagine everyone building on gaming, for example. The gaming industry and the music industry are really like looking at each other and evolve side by side like two cousins, right? They hate each other, but they love each other at the same time. Imagine that again, you arrive, you go on a streaming platform like ours, you would be able to say, oh, okay, I have social proof, like I was Tommy D's biggest fan in September 2023. Maybe in 1 year, he wants to do a concert just with the people that were his biggest fan that month. He doesn't need us. He can just go on chain. He doesn't need to talk to us. It's right there. So you are your own platform because you own your data. So ownership, transparency, it seems pretty simple, but Web3 is the only tech that can enable this without the risk of having intermediaries turning toxic.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a very clear opportunity, right? That Web3 can push ownership and push and close the gap between intermediaries, between a fan and an artist, right? The fact that there's so many layers and intermediaries between, you know, a fan and the artist they're listening to or want to support financially with their attention or in listens or otherwise. I think one thing that a lot of Web3 music maybe struggles with is like Spotify is a good product, right? Apple Music is a good product for most users. Like it's kind of a one size fits all. Yes, it has certainly disadvantaged the artist against traditional models, but I personally don't think that users are going to change just because of there's an ownership model with an artist, right? Maybe some of your super fans and things will, sure, but that's a big barrier, right? If you have to download a new app, use it on a different platform, etc., right? Most users and consumers today, they want something as like a buffet style of music, right? And that serves users pretty well. So like, given that context, like if it's not supplanting Spotify for that experience, where do you think the opportunity is for Web3 to help artists and fans?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great point, because this is the biggest misconception that I think people, you know, understand about Web3 music as a concept. It isn't about listening to music. You're quite right. The streaming experience is insanely brilliant for most people that make music. I can be in a club, I can Shazam a track, you know, I can send it to any one of these guys who send it to someone else, we can put it in a playlist, we can share the playlist. You know, it's a brilliant experience for the listener, for the curator, for the collector. Unfortunately, it's monetized in a really poor way. So I think you park the listening of music for a minute and you focus in on actually what you realize, which is that there's a whole other swathe of concepts around music that are nothing to do with really the listening of music. In fact, listening to music has two kind of ways. It has what we call a lean back experience and a lean forward experience. You go into a restaurant, they're playing music, you're listening to it, but you have no control over that experience. You go on Spotify, you listen to a track, you are in control of that experience. So how can you create sort of scenarios where people need to be more involved in the listening of music? Gigs, merchandise, meet and greets, vinyl, handwritten notes, personalized notes, on-chain merchandise. There are a plethora of incredible things that people can do that artists have. We call them assets. So when an artist comes to us at Token Tracks or a label or anyone, we talk about assets. What is it that you have that is valuable to other people? Again, parking music and listening to music to one side. What is it you have? And actually, when you talk to an artist about what they have, they realize they've got a ton of stuff. They write songs. Okay, so you could do a group songwriting session where you could talk about your writing process, or you could actually involve them in writing a song. You know, there's a lot of different things that you can come up with, concepts that they hadn't really even thought about. And that's one of the things that we help artists do in Token Tracks, is to make them understand that there is a value to what they're doing. Because most artists don't believe they have any value. And who can blame them? 0.003 of a penny is what you get paid for that experience. Imagine if what you did out there is worth 0.003 every time you did it. You'd feel like shit, right? You'd feel like you had no value. And that's what most artists now do feel. They feel embarrassed to be making music and asking people for money. So your point about listening to music is absolutely spot on. What there is a huge amount that can be monetized in a way to be gamified, or just built into like a VIP experience or a membership scheme or a mentoring program. We built a 360 experience on Token Tracks, which allows an artist to create an NFT using either Polygon or Zilliqa or a layer 2, come on with a credit card or with Apple and Google Pay. It's a custodial wallet that is built for them. You don't need to have any knowledge of crypto whatsoever. And all you want is that VIP pass, because it then takes it to the Token Tracks gated area, where you then can unlock a gated area where you've got a live stream or a merch link or whatever. And we're building out that experience every day. We've partnered up with a load of different people to create an even more incredible experience. We can now do vinyl, specifically on-chain vinyl. We can do on-chain merchandise. We can do on-chain ticketing. And we're building out the hub, the Token Tracks Studio Hub, to be this central place where an artist can just manage all these different experiences. Now, listening to music is the holy grail. And one day, I'm hoping that we'll have an on-chain music system, which means if I listen to an artist, they get paid straight away. That's what I hope for. But that's science fiction thinking. We'll get there. We will get there. But the first thing, as I always say, how do you eat an elephant? One little piece at a time. The first piece that you're going to eat is just what they do already, what they want already. What does the fan want? Tokenize that experience, and that's the starting point.
Well, and I think pushing away, and you know, Bryan and Ben, I'd like to hear your kind of thoughts here around, like, it's not going at scale, right? It's not going for the listener experience and things like that. It's kind of going towards your super fans, your loyal consumers, the people who have maybe spent money on a ticket, right? Like to go see an artist live. Like, as a booking agent, one of the things that I was blown away by in general is, like, artists do not know who their fans are that are coming to their show. Like, there's mental gatekeepers there like that. And to me, like, if I could reward or incentivize the people who paid money to see, like, me as an artist, if I were touring, like, that would be really important to me, right? And I would want to reward those people. So I think, like, you know, Bryan or Ben, like, how do you think about, you know, your own platforms or just more generally about some of these applications that could reward super fans or super loyal users of, you know?
Yeah, I can start. I think we have similar thoughts anyway. Yeah, I agree. So, yeah, for us, I think for most of us in this space, it is that 10 to 20% of your fan base that we're really targeting. And that shows not just in research, but also in the numbers that we see coming through as well. So it's really about how do you get the most engagement and essentially the dirty word money, right, from that fan base. So that is the game we're playing now. And to Tommy's point, we hope that would grow into other things over time, but that's the first game. It's kind of ironic because if you listen to these conversations, it's not really about Web3, right? It's about understanding your fans, how to engage them, and creating opportunities for them to, like, whether it's assets or just buy stuff on an e-commerce site even. I always remember a guy told me once, like, when we talk about Web3 for music, we don't say Web3 for MP3s. You know, like, the tech has kind of, like, gotten too far ahead, in my view. So I think we're all doing the same things. We have the same view. I agree with Ben 100%. Like, the only reason for us where Web3 really plays is that disintermediation of these gatekeepers over time. And so that's also like building the elephant, maybe not eating it, to your point. But what we hope is as these super fans engage, not only do the artists understand who they are, right, but the whole ecosystem can start engaging with different ways. And hopefully new streaming products could leverage that data. Hopefully there'll be other things we can't think of now. So I think we're laying some infrastructure down for music that fingers crossed can actually help maybe alleviate that imbalance that's been facing the music industry for centuries.
Yeah. Aligned. Tommy, it's fun when you define a science fictional scenario where artists would know what they make on the same day. It's Lissen, right? So give it a shot. But so fully aligned with the world that we're describing. I agree, like, we should not spend, well, it's a Web3 event, right? But, like, indeed, it's just the technology, right? When you have Bill Gates that explained to David Letterman 20 years ago what is the internet, he doesn't say, you know, we have an email server somewhere. He said, like, instead of waiting to receive your mail, you have something we call an electronic email. It's just faster. You get it, right? Like, when we talk to artists, that's exactly the point. It's like, we say we use Web3, for example, like, but just to change the foundational layer that we know very few people will care about. I think that, to bounce back on your points, that the first type of experiences and features we will provide will be indeed more appealing for people that are what we call super fans, right? But again, if we take a look at the industries that started and revolutionized most of the time their game, like in gaming again, right? Like 30% of their $60 billion industry is generated by 5% of their super fans, right? And this echo chamber, of course, is way more appealing because then you create a cultural shift. The same way TikTok was a dancing app, but then you start appealing to the masses because, well, you become a cultural thing. It's like it's normal now, for example, to have Spotify because it's normal to have all the music in the world. But it's also normal now for the artist to tell everyone, hey, if you want to stream me, I'm on all the big streamers. But when you want to watch Star Wars, you don't go on Netflix, do you? Right, so it means that there is some content creators that don't know how to value their own IP. If we change that foundational layer, it's going to become so natural for everyone. Right now, like if you say, oh, I can watch Star Wars on Netflix and Amazon, people will be like, what? It's a change in paradigm. if we implement properly and we execute properly and we educate properly about what we're trying to do with Web3, with Web2, with our partners, for example, we talk with collecting societies and so on, because it's useless no one wants to burn an industry to the ground. It's more like, how do we adapt? How do we enhance? How do we update this music industry? And I think that people also underestimate the fact that once the artist will have a safe house, which I think we're all trying to build, right? I think on Lissen, that's why we use it. Well, when you have a safe house, why do you put your content everywhere? Why would you do it? People, like, if you hear a Mr. Beast talking, like they're on YouTube, right? They know how the business works. Artists, for example, talking business and talking art is always a bit difficult. And people say, like, historically, artists are not good with business, but they never had the data. They never had the opportunity to actually properly engage with a lot of their fans. And I think that if we provide this to them, we're going to have a cultural change in the way people consume music. So, of course, the way, for example, we use this to create that what we call interactive music, that glue between fan, artist, and platform, is, for example, guys, if you stream my new single today, you can enter a raffle and win a concert ticket. Right, something is very easy. As an artist, you arrive, just put your ticket. It's super simple.
But I think to that point too, right? Like having a 1,000 true fans thesis or a big enough super fan base to support you as an artist is a luxury that only 5% of artists have at most, right? Like I think a lot of artists make the trade-off and go to the streaming services, and they're not going to pull their music off streaming services. Why? Well, that's distribution. That's how they grow their fan base, et cetera, right? So. Like I think a lot of these engagement and loyalty things are great, but they're somewhat catered to the top end of the artist's spectrum already.
Well, like they are. But I think an important statistic to understand is that actually, I think it was JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley, one of them did a report about this. They claim that if they could monetize, in fact, 20% of an artist's fan base wants to pay more for the experience. If you actually look at a fan base, and if anybody was at my talk earlier on this morning, I did a whole talk about this, which is if you break down fan bases, they pretty much are uniformly the same. 3% of an artist's fan base, and I think this fan base concept is the same for any concept, right? 3% actually generate over 60% of an artist's income. So if you can double that 3% to 6%, you're effectively doubling an artist, 60% of an artist's income. And then, of course, if you do that with every artist, you're actually almost doubling the music business size as well. So the essence is, how do you get that? If you've got that 3% engaged and excited, how do you build on top of that? And you build on top of that using the concepts that we talked about here, which is about getting people engaged. It's about two things. It's about making money, and it's three things: making money, making friends, and having status. That's pretty much it. If you build into a gamification concept around that, then that the next level, the sort of 5, 6, 7, 8% that are outside of that 3%, they start looking in and going, hang on a minute, I want a bit of that. I like that. Where do I sign up? At the moment, that experience isn't there for most people. If you think about your favorite artist, how would you support your favorite artist right now? How would you? You'd go to a gig maybe. Maybe you'd buy some vinyl or you'd buy a t-shirt or something directly from them, but you wouldn't really know how to do that. We start bringing in these concepts of how you can directly support an artist, utilizing, an NFT ownership, which gives you all this status, which gives you all this, opportunity, plus a community of other like-minded people. And guess what? You might be able to make a bit of money out of it, because you might be able to trade it at some point for profit. Woohoo! Where do I sign up? So I think there's a lot of there's a lot of opportunities, I think, to look at how these things work together. But that's the crucial thing, is finding that 3% and then building on top of them to make it so attractive that the next 7 or 8% are doing it. And actually, that's what's happening now with music NFT artists. Tonight, Token Tracks is hosting the music stage downstairs. We've got artists going from 5 p.m. onwards. Many of those artists are going to be performing tonight, plus many more, are finding that they are taking their core 3% of monthly listeners on Spotify and more than tripling it for income. In fact, one of the artists, Violetta Zeroni, she's made over 844 ETH just from selling NFTs. That's the equivalent of 288 million streams. This is a person who has 25,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. So you do the maths. She's really exploded her fan base into something a lot more lucrative. And there are people now who, like myself, who are spending $200-300 on an artist that I barely just discovered. But I like them. I think they're good. I want to support them. This is how I can do it. And you start multiplying that out across many, many artists and many, many fan bases. And instantly, like the guys say, what was strange and weird now just becomes the norm. In 10 years, 15 years, it'll be just normal that the artists that you really like, you support this way.
Yeah, I think just to briefly add to that, Garrett, going back to your question around like, if I'm a small artist, is there enough, can I do this 1,000 fan thing?
Right.
Like what we've seen, again, it's funny because we start with data, right? Like data and understanding who your fan base is. And then we automate things to make it easier for artists to do it. Because the biggest thing we've seen is unless, especially if you're a small artist, you don't have a commercial team really behind you to do this stuff. So you need really simple tools that take care of all those bullshit tasks. So what we've seen, for example, is we've helped smaller artists find that maybe it's a 3% segment that would pay $500 for maybe just 20 vinyl records. Yeah. But we make sure we hit that first, and then the rest of them, which would be like a super fan, gets the rest. So we use Web3 and virtual items to make that a bit more gamified, a bit more formal around it. So it's possible, I would say.
No, I think it's possible. And I think one of the frictions you hear often from artists is like, wait a minute, like I don't have to just create my art, right? I don't have to just create the music. Now I have to do X, Y, and Z. It's all on me. Like, I think there's this assumption, from artist tooling companies or things who are trying to provide platforms to artists that requires them to all of a sudden become much more of an entrepreneur, a business person they ever were. Yeah. And as we know of artists, like many of them aren't naturally like that. And some of them are fortunate enough to have a good management team or a team behind them. But as you say, right, like whenever you're first starting out, you don't have those luxuries, right? You don't have the benefits of that. How do you get to a space where you start to have that? You start to have some promotion or things. And frankly, that's why a lot of artists go and sign major label deals, ultimately. They want some sort of support and they don't know where to start. Absolutely. So I think like one of the big things that, I've started to see a lot more with Web3 and otherwise, like there's creator tools that, should be more plug and play. Almost think about it as like no code tools for artists. Yeah. Yeah. And I think we need more of that in general. But, Ben, I would pass it over to you kind of like, do you think that's something that you think about at Lissen, or how do you think about an artist, say, coming to you and saying, that's just more work for me?
Yeah, we build everything to take less than a minute, right? So I agree with you. The only pushback I would give is on the fact that you sign with, so it's not like the majors against the whole world, right? It's like making the major evolve to this new model that we're proposing is difficult, right? That's why we talk collective societies, majors and so on, and like the whole concept is to bring the whole music industry together, right? Yeah, 2 points. The first one, I still think that you now sign with bigger labels. That could also happen in the independent sector, right? Because they have access to tools that you don't. So I think like right now being a DIY artist is way easier than it was like 5-10 years ago. You have a lot of companies doing a lot of great work on this. The other one, the point that you had at the beginning that I think is super interesting of like, how do we transform something that we could do now that is a bit niche, right? We know because we need to start somewhere, right? How do you go from the Tesla first model to Model 3, like an Elon Musk type master plan, to not end up like a company like Spotify that people are just like, that's the model people want to use, but it's not viable. It's losing money like crazy, and that's why like the music industry is taking a look at other alternatives. That's why we're able to have these discussions. 5 years ago, people are just like, nah, Spotify is the way. Why would you challenge the music industry? We're maybe 2 billion in debt. Like TikTok is great. Everyone can go on company's house and check, right? They generated 2 billion, right? People never talk about gross revenue, net revenue, right? Same, talking business, it's dirty, right? Except they spend 3 billion. So if I give you 10 pounds and you manage to generate 7, well, it's good, you burn 3, right? But the genius, right? So why the fact that this strategy has been invented by the guys at LinkedIn, it's called blitz scaling. Everyone knows it if we read a bit about entrepreneurship. It's just, we don't know what's the business model. Let's grow our user base as quickly as possible. We're going to find a way to monetize. Well, 99.9% of the time, you're going to end up having to sell your customers' data or being in debt. So right now, the whole music industry is subsidized by investors' money. It's just fact. Everyone can go on the SEC website, go check. It's boring. It's long documents, but it's just a fact. No one is making money apart from Bandcamp. Yeah. that has been sold again. But so, for example, the only ones that are actually managed over 15 years to generate a profitable business model in the music industry, the only ones, are a company that doesn't have enough money in their own bank to just be independent. And so they are bought over by Epic Games and now SongTrader. So I agree with you that appealing to a niche market should just be the first step. And the point is that how do we transform that and how do we implement? And this is where we need to be together, right? We joke about networking and that's what we do in these kind of events. But right now, for example, Lissen, it's been 1.5 years in the making, and every people we met is helping us to get closer to this deal. Because now we're trying to literally unify the independent sector all across Europe. We're going to the States. I'll see you in New York. In the States, in 3 weeks, just because we also have to do this. And then after, the point is to say, when we start talking with the majors, for example, guys, look, we have an added value. That's why at first, again, Tesla is the easiest example for everyone to see, but let's do it on a niche market with this 3%. Maybe we're going to have 2. It doesn't matter. Look, people enjoy this product. Now, can you scale that? But at first, you need to show a product market fit, which we'll do from next year. So it's fine, Q1.
Well, you raised a good point too, right? Spotify's not turning a profit, right? It's built under the same model of Uber is growth at all costs. We'll figure out how to monetize it and make it profitable later. Yes, they provided a really good product through that, but that's why the economics of that business do not serve artists. They serve curators and major labels because the rights deals didn't change when Spotify started, right? Spotify did not change any of the way that major label deals are structured. So the rights deals were just passed through a different intermediary, a la Spotify, as opposed to, a physical distribution in a CD or cassette, right? So it did improve upon the Napsters and the LimeWires and things like that were pirated music marginally, but it didn't really improve on the previous concept. And I think what you guys touched upon is really interesting is I think Tommy, you mentioned this, if I'm a fan of an artist and they're not touring in my general area, it's pretty unclear how I can directly support them and also get something as a fan that I want, right? Absolutely. It's not as simple as just saying, I'm going to buy a membership from you because I support you as an artist. That's not a good value proposition to many fans or users, right? Coming from the live music industry, a lot of artists are indie artists who don't have crazy streams, they are forced to tour. That is the only way they can make a fully living as a musician. And I think in lieu of that, what do you guys think maybe could be a potential for that if I'm a fan of an artist, but they haven't toured in my, let's say, general area? What do you think might be a solution in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, back in 2000, the music industry was valued at $40 billion and the games industry was valued at $40 billion. Fast forward to today, the music industry is worth $28 billion, so less money than it was 20 years ago. And the games industry is worth about 300 billion. So why has the games industry been able to connect with people and, as Benjamin quite rightly says, create a value metric in its base product that the music business has been done so badly in doing? And hey, we've all been through COVID, we've all been through wars, so it's not like any of these industries are more affected than others. Arguably, you could say music is probably the most important of all of these industries. I could probably ask each and every one of you what your favorite song is, and you would tell me with some great emotion why that is. And then you would lose your shit to it if I put it on the disco later on tonight, right? You don't do that with, the only other thing possibly is sports, right? Maybe, But everybody loves music because we lose our shit to music. And yet we can't fucking value it properly. So what we need to do is start with this basic concept that if you like music, you need to pay for it. Now, then how do we cut that cake? Well, this is what all of us are on stage doing and working out. And it is a slow process. A huge part of that cake is listening to music, which is well and truly covered at the moment. But we do need an education process which says, make it valuable to the consumer to invest in music and artists. Not just because they need money. Hey, we all need money. We all need love. And to go back to your point about artists, I'm sorry. Every artist should be a hustler. Every artist should be an entrepreneur. If you're not, then fine, make music in your bedroom and play it to your mates. But if you want to make it a career, You've got to get out there and hustle the fuck, because that is your thing. And if you believe that you have value, then you set a value and you say, I'm not going below that value. And that's what you have to do. It's what we all do as human beings anyway, within our industries. So that is the first thing, is actually explaining to artists that you do something that has value. So put a fucking price on it and make sure you stick to it. That involves unionization. That's a big problem. We have no union in the music industry. If I say, no, my value is this, I've got 20 people behind me who'll do it for half price. There is intrinsically your problem.
Right. Well, I think, and just to simplify, do you view there's something, a different kind of medium or format potentially that could fill that need? Like, I don't think none of us, replicating a virtual concert is not even comparable to a live experience. No, I would guess that most people do not want to pay for that, right? It's a nice to have, but it's not something that really provides value to the end user or fan.
But if they're in there and they're like engaging with like other people, and there's a value to them being in there, and there's an area which only they can go into with a step, then you start to bring in a value metric that some people might pay for.
But that's a fan club, to be fair.
That should be the North Star. The North Star is a live show with your community. The artists can see you can see them. That's what we call interactive music. It's like, that's the North Star. And how can we get as close to that North Star as possible digitally? And I think like all the added value, for example, again, if you change the paradigm, the foundation of how money is split or how ownership and data is shared, again, that's kind of boring, but at the end of the day, as a user, for example, you now have artists that do more concerts close to you. Like, I come from the countryside. People would never come. We were 1,000. We are people. Small villages, but we had people. It's just we had to travel for like 2 hours to get to a city nearby. Now, because we use that experience, we're just like, oh, on Listen, you have an audience heat map. So as a listener, it seems useless. Yes, but now the artists know where they can perform. Right. So it's not like when you have on Spotify, oh, I have 15,000 fans in London. Useless. London is a pretty big city. Now we tell you at the zone level where you could go. So now as a user, you have perks that you can see directly, right? That you can get, like what you're building. Yeah. And on top of that, you see more music around you.
I think that, we have 10 seconds left. Any final words about Web3 and music in 10 seconds or less?
Buy music NFTs, support artists, keep believing, keep building. We've got a stage downstairs. It's 5:00 p.m. There's going to be some amazing artists. And there's a booth as well if you want to come and talk to the Token Tracks team about what we're up to.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much, guys.